now. Mama?
Hello and welcome back to the neighborhood. Today we're diving deep into a game that's been turning heads and sparking conversations ever since its reveal, South of Midnight. Now, in a gaming landscape often dominated by gritty realism or familiar fantasy tropes, this title feels like a breath of fresh, humid southern air. So grab your sweet tea, settle in, and let's talk about what makes South of Midnight so special. At its core, South of Midnight is an action-adventure game that throws you headfirst into the mystical and often eerie heart of the American South. You play as Hazel, a young woman caught up in a supernatural family crisis that unravels a world steeped in folklore and ancient magic. Think bayous teeming with secrets, characters dripping with southern charm, and a story that tries to feel as thick and winding as a Mississippi River. But what truly sets South of Midnight apart? This game has a vibe. It's got a soul. Especially in terms of visuals, it aims to be different, and that is something we desperately need more of in gaming.
Hello?
Alright. Let's talk about the look of this game, because South of Midnight is an absolute feast for the eyes. The color palette is so rich and vibrant, it practically jumps off the screen. Those deep greens of the swamp, the fiery oranges of a setting sun, it all comes together in this stunning, almost painterly way. But the real magic here? The animation. This isn't your typical smooth, hyper-realistic motion capture. South of Midnight embraces this incredible stop-motion inspired style, giving the world and its characters this wonderfully distinct, almost tactile quality. It's like a living storybook, full of quirks and character that you just don't see every day. It lends this unique personality and undeniable charm to absolutely everything, from the way creatures move to the subtle expressions on characters' faces. Now, some of you might be thinking, stop motion? Isn't that going to be janky? And that's a fair question. But the beauty here is that the developers at Compulsion Games have clearly put in the work to make it feel intentional and artistic, not clunky. Plus, and this is a huge win in my book, they've included an option in the settings to turn off the stop motion effect if it's not your cup of tea. So you can still experience the game with a more traditional smooth animation style. It's a win-win. And I also want to take a moment to appreciate the character designs. Everyone you encounter, from the grizzled townsfolk to the mysterious figures lurking in the shadow, is bursting with personality. They're stylized, they're memorable, and they tell a story just by looking at them. Especially the animal characters, Catfish being the perfect example and an absolute standout.
My salvation.
A talking fish? Nope. Ain't no way.
Oh, Weaver, like you must have seen stranger things than me. And I was so sorry to hear about your misfortune. You find your mama yet?
It's these little details that make the world feel so alive and imaginative. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the game's pacing. South of Midnight isn't trying to be this sprawling 100-hour epic with a million side quests, and honestly, that's a good thing. My playthrough clocked in around 8 to 10 hours, and it felt just about right. It didn't overstay its welcome, and I wasn't left feeling overwhelmed by endless tasks or bogged down in unnecessary fluff.
I think I'm getting the hang of this.
Now I want to talk about the real heart and soul of South of Midnight. That is its incredible exploration of the American South and its rich, often overlooked mythos.
Take this and go find your mama.
The southern swamps aren't just a backdrop here. They're practically a character themselves. This region is steeped in history, folklore, and a certain kind of haunting beauty that we just don't see explored enough in games. It's so refreshing to step into a world that feels both familiar and utterly unique. I really love the way that South of Midnight weaves in local legends and creatures. You'll encounter whispers of Two-Toed Tom, that legendary massive alligator that strikes fear into the hearts of swamp dwellers, and Rougarou, the terrifying werewolf-like beast from Cajun folklore that's said to stalk the bayous under the full moon. The game also touches upon the concept of haints, sorrowful spirits born from pain and tragedy, forever tied to the places that they suffered. And then there's the enigmatic Huggan Molly, a shadowy figure whispered about in the backwoods, as well as bottle trees adorned with colorful glass, a tradition with deep roots in West African beliefs, brought to the South and believed to ward off evil spirits. The developers at Compulsion Games clearly weren't just throwing in some spooky monsters. They've crafted a world that feels authentically steeped in the region's unique cultural tapestry. As someone who actually lives in the South, just a stone's throw away from the vibrant city of New Orleans, playing South of Midnight felt like coming home in a really fascinating and slightly eerie way. It wasn't just a caricature, it felt like a genuine love letter to the mythos and culture. You can tell the developers did their homework, and that level of respect and attention to detail truly elevates the entire experience. And speaking of atmosphere, the soundtrack in South of Midnight is also really well done.
Angry crowds roll on the far horizon. Sick green sky and tornadoes colliding. How much longer until the river's rising? Birds fall silent and the critters are hiding. When mucky swamps and dusty lands colliding.
It's another area where you can just feel the care and research that went into crafting this world. It leans heavily into this incredible jazz-inspired soundscape. Think smoky saxophone solos, soulful blues riffs, and rhythm that just makes you want to sway along. It perfectly complements the southern setting, adding layers of mood, mystery, and even a touch of melancholy to the experience. Honestly, the music alone is almost worth the price of admission. It's the kind of soundtrack you might want to listen to even when you're not playing the game. Now, as much as I've been singing South of Midnight's praises, no game is perfect. There were a couple of areas that, for me, didn't quite stick the landing. The core gameplay loop in South of Midnight revolves around platforming exploration and these combat arena sequences. Now, the exploration itself is genuinely enjoyable. It has this nostalgic feel, almost like playing some of the classic adventure games from the GameCube or PS2 era, but with a modern polish. It feels good to move Hazel around the environment and discover hidden nooks and crannies. However, the combat, well, it's fine. It's functional, but it doesn't evolve enough over the course of the game to really stay engaging. The enemy variety is decent, but the core mechanics can feel a little repetitive. I found myself going through the motions in some of these combat encounters as the game went on, and it didn't quite have the same spark as exploring the world or unraveling the story. And then there's the ending. This game starts so incredibly strong, with memorable moments and a real sense of momentum building, but the conclusion, it just felt a little abrupt. It lacked that final punch, that emotional resonance that could have elevated the entire story from good to unforgettable. It felt like the narrative was building towards something truly impactful, and then just kind of stopped. It just left me feeling underwhelmed. Despite those couple of drawbacks, South of Midnight is still a game that I wholeheartedly recommend checking out. Its unique visual style, its captivating exploration of Southern mythos, and its incredible soundtrack make it a truly memorable experience. It's a game that dares to be different, and for the most part, succeeds. So what do you think of South of Midnight? Are you intrigued by its unique style and setting? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more in-depth reviews and gaming discussions. Thanks for hanging out. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay friendly, gamers.